In this video, I'm going to teach you the fundamentals about the Revit API. If you're an architect or engineer, you're going to be able to answer the most frequent questions asked about the Revit API in any office. And if you're a Revit modeler or BIM manager and pay attention to the video, I will tell you how to get the example that I will show you in this video. First of all, what's the Revit API? What I have on my screen is the actual documentation of Revit API docs, which is at revitapidocs.com. API means Application Programming Interface, and an application programming interface is what a program offers to its users in order to be able to communicate with the program. It doesn't mean that the program is an open program, its code, or that its code is free. It's only a part of this program which is open to all the users. It allows the users to handle the insides of the program, manipulate them, control them. Why is this important? Well, because first of all, you can customize or create your own programs, your own scripts. In this case, you can program with Revit, so you can program the Revit use. This means automating repetitive tasks or reaching where the original program can't reach on its own. Secondly, because of effectiveness. If you're able to program your tasks, you will be able to save a lot of time. Also because of integration. By using Revit API, you may integrate Revit with other platforms and also with other databases, and this is super useful in the interconnected era that we are now. And finally, because of innovation. If you automate your task and are innovative, you may be able to handle building volumes that other enterprises may not, or other architects or engineers may not, because of the leverage that automation gives you. So how to access Revit API? How may I talk directly with the computer? You can't go and talk with the computer in any old way. You can't come here and learn Revit API as if you were learning a dictionary. That would be a mistake. Instead, you have to talk with the computer on its own language. There are many different ways to use the Revit API. Some are direct and some indirect. The easiest indirect way in which to access the Revit API or to start using programming for Revit is by using Autodesk Exchange apps, which is basically to use the code which has been written by other programmers. So you may access apps.autodesk.com/rvd/English, and you have here lots of applications, some of which I really hope you know because they are super useful. My favorite right now is the Roots one, which has 8 productivity tools, but I think that room finishing is also a must for architects, and I get this one. This one is asked a lot by many students. How may I automate my finishes for the rooms? These two are a must download. And my other favorite one, which I can find right now, is PyRevit. If you want this application, you can download it directly from GitHub. The second way of using Revit API in an indirect way is by using Dynamo for Revit. So where's Dynamo for Revit? How can you use it? You can use it right here. It comes directly for free with Revit, and you can access it through the Manage tab and then pressing Dynamo. Now, why am I telling you that this is an indirect way to handle the Revit API or to start controlling it? Because here, each node encapsulates a bit of code. So it's a really simple way to get started with the jargon and with the terms of the Revit API by looking at what a code asks of you. For instance, in Dynamo, we have a node which is just a drop-down of all the categories. But you may realize that right here we have many more categories than those on the Revit program. In the Revit API, we may also find all these categories inside the building category enumeration. So Dynamo is a really simple way to better familiarize ourselves with the Revit API. We can also use the Revit API by using a scripting language, but not all scripting languages are compatible with the Revit API. How do I know which language is compatible with my current Revit version? Let's take a look at it. In the Manage tab, if you go to the Macro Manager, you create a new module. Here you are offered the different programming languages which are compatible with your Revit API version. In this case, I'm using Revit 2024 and the compatible languages are C#, Visual Basic, .NET, and Python. So which of these three languages should I use to access the Revit API? Luis, please give me a hand here. Well, if you look at the documentation, you will see that you have examples of the different languages. For instance, let's go to a world class. We have examples in C#, Visual Basic, and Visual++. But Revit API works exactly the same in any language. It is the same documentation. So what you can do with a language, you can do it with the other one. It only depends on which part of the interface is open to programmers and users. So for instance, if you have been using Visual Basic to program with Excel, which is a very common language for Excel programming, I will advise you to keep it simple for you and to use the language you are most familiarized with. By the way, my name is Luisa Santamaria. I am an architect and BIM consultant, and I have been using Revit API since the year 2014. I have been teaching architects and engineers how to program with the Revit API since 2018, but I have been doing this in Spanish mainly. So if you're new to the channel, welcome, subscribe before we go for the example parts. So which program is better? It depends. If you ask someone who knows how to use C#, he's going to tell you that C#. If you ask a person who has been programming with Visual Basic for his entire career, he's going to tell you Visual Basic. What I prefer is to give you the option of choosing. So just take a look at the different examples on the internet and consider which is the one which suits you and your needs best. I have personally been teaching Python for architects and engineers for these years because I think that the learning curve is a little less steep than that of C# and also because it fits perfectly with Dynamo Revit. Why does it work so well with Dynamo? Well, because if I go to Revit and I go to Dynamo and I write here Python, I will get a direct way to access the Python console. So this is a place, if I double click it, where I can directly write my scripts. But even like this, let me underline this for you. Put it in bold letters. Revit API works exactly the same for any language. That said, let's consider an example. Imagine I am working in the plumbing example Snowdon Tower sample plumbing, and I want to select certain categories in this model by using Python only. So I want to select these ducts. How would I do that? My first step will be to see in which category these objects are where programming is concerned. And for that, I want to go to add-ins and then to Revit Lookup and press Snoop and press Search Elements. And then I have to write here the ID of this element. So if I look for the ID of this element by ID of selection and I copy this and then go to my search element and search it, I will get that this is a duct. Thank you very much for the information. Here I have the category, which is ducts. And if I press it, I will see that the building category it corresponds to is OST underscore that cubes. So this is the building category that I must use in order to find this element by using my Revit API. So where may I find this in the Revit API documentation? If I directly write OST underscore that curves, I have this inside building category enumeration. So what it says here, this lists all the building categories within Revit. And where is this building category enumeration stored? It is stored here in the autodesk.revit.db, which means directly database. So I know that in order to access this building category enumeration, I need to import this library, which is Autodesk Revit DB, so that my Python script may work. So how will we find these ducts? If I go directly to my Python script, I'm going to open a file that we will normally use in our mastery for Dynamo and Python, best practices, and I'm going to use the Revit 2024. This is going to be a bit blurry because this is for my students, okay? But what I have here is a bit of code which will enable me to find almost every library that I need to be able to work with the Revit API inside of Dynamo and using the Python console. Now, as you can see here, I have imported my Autodesk Revit.database, and I have chosen the asterisk symbol, which means import everything that comes in this library. Now, by doing that, I am importing all of this, okay? Everything that comes inside the Autodesk Revit database namespace. So all of this is imported into my Python script. It's a little too much, but don't worry about this right now. So I'm going to leave just the document to tell my script that I'm working right now in the document that I have opened, and it may occur to you to write something like this. Okay, if we knew nothing about the Revit API, we will do this, and then we will have a problem. So I get the mistake, name OST_duct_curves is not defined. Why is this? I have imported everything. So why is this not working? Why doesn't it understand us? Well, in order to find something by using the Revit API, we have to speak on its terms. And in order to filter something such as a category, we need to use the filter element collector. Let's look at it. When I go to the filter element collector class and look at its members, which is how we build a filter element connector, it says, well, I really need the document. Doesn't matter how I'm going to be using this, I need the document, okay? And then I need you to tell me if it's of a category, of a class, of a category ID. Please tell me what I'm looking for. So first we will have to build the filter element collector of the current document at the very least. How do I write this? I'm going to copy directly from the documentation, filter element collector. Then I have to select the document, which I have done right here. And then I pick of category, and for the category, if I go to of category, we can see here that I have the building category as an option. And then I may select OST.curves. If I don't want the types, I will have to use where element is not element type. And if I want to get the elements, I will have to choose 2 elements. And if I run this, I have my 181 ducts. Why have you added so many things, Luisa? I don't understand. What have you done? Let's see this step by step. First, I added the filter element collector of the document only to tell my Python that I am working in the current document, which is now opened. Then I wrote of category in order to tell it that I'm going to be selecting my objects by category. And then I picked the OST.curves, which is a built-in category, which means that this category is included in my Revit by default. And then I use where element is not element type to erase all the types. But if I didn't use this, I will also be getting some results. But take into account that right here I got the element type, which means that I'm getting the types of that, not the elements which are currently placed in the model, but these ones, the family here selected, okay? The type of that family. This is why I get element type. If I were to use it, you have here without the types 192. If I delete the types, I have 181. Then I wrote 2 elements, which is a way of telling it I want to translate the Revit API, those elements inside Python, to something that I can get in the output, which is understandable for someone human, okay? Because if not, I will get Autodesk Revit database mechanical duct, and I need each instance. So this is a way to get each instance. Now, I haven't invented any of these methods. They are all described in the Revit API official documentation that you can take a look right here. I really hope this video is super useful for you. If you want to join up the waiting list for Mastery for Dynamo and Python in Revit, you can join it right here, and you can also subscribe to this channel, which will make us most grateful. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you on the next video.